Welcome to my channel. If you don't know me already, I'm Lucy. I live in a yurt with my husband Tim, who is a Kiwi, and our two children, Ramona and Juno. We're completely off-grid. We live our lives on solar power, and we also live without school and a few of the other kind of societal norms too. So one of the things Tim and I have been thinking about a little bit lately is how our sort of base standard of living has changed in the last few years. So like when we first came here to the land, we lived in this tiny little yurt. We didn't have really a good solar system. When we first went off-grid, we didn't have a fridge. We didn't even have lights. We just had to use head torches. And when we first came here to the land, our toilet was literally a hole in the ground with a sort of toilet seat sort of over it, completely exposed to the elements. These days, we've got a toilet that is undercover. We've got a very robust solar system. We're really getting to a stage in our life where we've got everything we need, and it might be less than what other people have, but it's so much more than we used to have. And it feels to me like there's a little bit of a risk in letting our baseline of living just kind of keep moving up and falling into the trap of upgrading. It feels like at the moment humankind is kind of locked into the cycle of upgrading. Nothing is ever good enough, and that is not a trap that I want me and Tim to fall into, because the truth is we've got everything we need right here. In fact, most of what we need is actually in here. What is up with the collective need to strive for more? The collective dissatisfaction that so plagues humankind these days. It feels as though as our overall standard of living has increased as a society, our dissatisfaction has increased too. They reckon that the last 9 years have been some of the unhappiest years on record. We're more depressed than we ever have been, and yet we have more physical stuff than we've ever had. And that's not just an accident. That's because there has been a concerted effort on behalf of corporations to make us feel like we don't have enough. As our living standards have risen, marketing has become more ruthlessly intensified. They reckon that the average human sees 3,000 adverts every single day. And in that kind of environment, it's incredibly hard to feel satisfied with what you've got, even if what you've got is so much more than what you had 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or last generation. I'm doing a course with Charles Eisenstein at the moment called Living in the Gift. I highly recommend it. I'll link to it below. But one of the phrases that struck me early on in the course is this phrase: gratitude is our native state. Sometimes it feels as though the human condition is an unsatisfied one, as though we have evolved to strive, to compete, to get more. And Charles Eisenstein says, no, that's not the case. In fact, our natural state is one where we recognize abundance, where we can be naturally grateful for everything we've got. But the thing is, corporations are now really intelligently targeting us in order to stir up our dissatisfaction. And that is making us unhappy. And that's a crazy thing, because it should be enough to just acknowledge it. It should be enough to just go, hey, that corporation is making me feel stink about my life. I'm not having it. It doesn't really work like that, because it's often insipid. It sneaks in. It's like a toxic leak into our collective minds. So what's the answer? Is there a solution? I think there's probably a number of solutions, and I think you probably know quite a few of them, and I'd love to start this conversation. I want to start this conversation with the thing that I'm gonna do as a solution to this. I'm gonna bring in a remedy that I think will heal and protect me from this targeting, and that is I'm gonna put on my gratitude specs. So these gratitude specs will allow me to rest in my native state of gratitude. They will allow me to wake up in the morning and look around me and know that I've got everything I need. It will allow me to name and recognize the abundance of things in my life, which will then arm me against any of this targeting by corporations. I don't know if I'm quite brave enough to wear them out and about. Now, this isn't a message for people out there who have nothing. Oh my goodness, you are allowed to hunger for a roof over your head, for nutritious food, for a job that you enjoy, that pays you proper money, for living standards. This message isn't for you. I'm not telling you to feel grateful for the little you have. This message is for the people like me who tick quite a lot of the boxes on privilege bingo. We're the ones who can put in a little bit of the work to stop this toxic leak into the collective human consciousness. I think it's time that we take the idea of gratitude away from the sphere that it's currently in, which is I call them the positive vibe tribe. Now, some of them are cool, don't get me wrong, but there's also a few dodgy ingredients in that whole thing. The idea that you always need to be positive and that negative vibes aren't welcome. Actually, I want to live in a community where all emotions are welcome, where all vibes are welcome, where people who are feeling all sorts of things, the full human spectrum of emotion, I want to live in a world where they are welcomed and honored. So I think let's take gratitude away from the positive vibe crew and simply make it something that we all rest in. I think we need to just give it all up. The longing, the striving, being pawns in a corporation's marketing game. We need to give it all up and replace it with this one thing, gratitude specs. It's kind of like rose-tinted spectacles, but it's authentic. Recognizing all that you have stops you longing for more. Practically, it has an effect because as we feel more grateful, we need to spend less time on social media, seeking approval from other people, which then will probably cut the advertising we see in half and will give us more time, less time spent on Facebook, will give us more time for actual community, for hosting crap dinner parties with our neighbors. Also, shopping less, spending less time on Amazon, looking at the latest kitchen gadgets that we need that will free us up in theory, but never ever do. Spending less time shopping will give us more time to do endorphin releasing activities such as spending time with our friends, singing, dancing, telling stories, these ancient ways of being that we've always done as humans until very recently. All of those things are important for happiness, but we don't have any time for them now because we're so busy striving. I don't know if there's ever been such a double bind. This toxic messaging that we need more, which makes us feel unhappy internally, which then makes us buy more stuff, which destroys our earth, which makes us feel horrible internally. Such a tangle of grossness, jeebus. And it's no silver bullet, but I think it's the start of a conversation. Gratitude. We wake up, we make lists in our mind of all the things we're grateful for. Before we eat, we do a round with the people we're sitting with and everybody says one word to say something that they're thankful for. When we actually say thanks, instead of just going, thanks for that, we name it. This is a practice that comes from nonviolent communication. Instead of saying, thanks, we say what I need that we had that was met and we honor the person. So you might say something like, I'm so grateful that you took the girls today because I woke up feeling really under pressure by my to-do list. And when you took the girls for a couple of hours, they had a wonderful time. And I began to feel much more at peace and relaxed about all the things I had to do. So I'm so grateful that you could do that for me today. Now, I'm an activist. I spend a lot of time working on climate change and kind of stirring up the uprising of mass civil disobedience that I think is part of the toolbox for transforming society into the just, fair and beautiful world that we long for. But I actually think that getting into the mental state of gratitude is one of the most subversive and radical acts we can do right now in this moment. Just as we need to be working together to stop the release of carbon into our Earth's atmosphere, we need to work together and as individuals to stop the release of toxic dissatisfaction into our collective consciousness. And gratitude is one of the things we do. It's a collective reculturing of our mind climate. Are you with me on this? Do you want to have some gratitude specs too? This is mine and Tim's challenge for the year, and we welcome you on board. We want to have this conversation with you. So we are not naturally predisposed for dissatisfaction. We're actually predisposed for gratitude. Love to hear from you. You can keep in touch with me via Patreon as well. There's resources, live streams, all sorts of things happening on Patreon. I welcome you on board with that. Thank you so much for watching. Wherever you are in the world, stay radical. Mwah.